went through the whole damn thing that On the Waterfront was about, and it was in a fury about it. So.
At age 86, a rumor spread across Hollywood like a spark in dry grass. A headline claimed Elia Kazan, one of the most feared, admired, and debated directors of the 20th century, had finally revealed his 6 favorite films. But here's the twist. That list never existed. Not officially, not publicly, not anywhere. So, what's the truth? Tonight, we peel back the myth and step inside the mind of a man who shaped American cinema. Not through quotes invented by clickbait headlines, but through the films he returned to, spoke about, and carried with him until the day he died. These 6 movies weren't chosen by rumor. They were chosen by his son, his collaborators, and the rare moments when Kazan himself let his guard down. What do these films reveal about him? What memories did they carry? And why did he keep watching them, even in the final years of his life? As we count down from number 6 to number 1, you'll see the contradictions, the brilliance, and the emotional scars that shape the man behind the camera. And let me ask you this before we begin. If you had to pick only 6 films to define your entire life, which ones would survive? Number 6, A Streetcar Named Desire, 1951. When most directors looked at Tennessee Williams' A Streetcar Named Desire, they saw a beautiful play. Elia Kazan saw battlefield, drama, desire, shame, humiliation, all colliding inside one cramped New Orleans apartment. And when he brought the play to the screen in 1951, he wasn't just adapting a script. He was trying to trap lightning inside a bottle. But here's the part most people never hear. Even though audiences and critics worship the film, Kazan himself liked to joke that it had too much talking. He once quipped he could have told the whole story in 20 minutes. Was he serious? Or was that the humor of a man who knew he'd created something heavy, explosive, and emotionally dangerous? Streetcar was more than a film for Kazan. It was a confrontation between illusion and truth, between fantasy and brutality, between the characters and themselves. You can feel it in every frame, and if you watch it closely, you start to understand why Kazan kept returning to it, even if he teased it mercilessly. Because behind the jokes, the film revealed something Kazan admired deeply: raw, unfiltered humanity. He pushed his actors until their emotions cracked open like glass under pressure. Vivien Leigh, playing Blanche Dubois, was already spiraling emotionally in real life. And Kazan captured that fragility with almost uncomfortable honesty. Marlon Brando, meanwhile, wasn't performing a role. He was detonating one.
In the state of Louisiana, we got here what's known as the Napoleonic Code.
His portrayal of Stanley Kowalski wasn't polished. It wasn't pretty. But it was alive. Dangerously alive. And Kazan built the entire visual world of the film to amplify Brando's energy. The sweat, the shadows, the claustrophobic walls closing in as tempers rose. Kazan believed that truth on film required risk. Emotional risk, moral risk, creative risk, and Streetcar was all risk. He stripped away the polish of Hollywood acting and replaced it with something audiences had never seen before. Something closer to confession than performance. He once said that directing actors was like reaching for their souls and pulling something honest out of them. On Streetcar, he succeeded, and then some. But even if he joked about the film being too talky, he kept it close. He screened it again and again, analyzing it like a man rereading a chapter of his own diary. A diary that still unsettled him decades later. Maybe that's why the film remains so powerful today. Because beneath the theatrical language and iconic lines, Kazan carved out an emotional truth that still feels dangerous. Still feels intimate. Still feels like it was never meant to be watched casually. So here's a question for you. Do you think Kazan teased the film because he found it too wordy? Or because it exposed something in himself he wasn't ready to admit? And if you've ever loved a movie that stirred something uncomfortable inside you, do you watch it again because you enjoy it? Or because it keeps revealing new pieces of who you really are? Streetcar wasn't Kazan's favorite film, but it was a mirror. And mirrors, especially honest ones, are hard to look away from. Number 5, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, 1945. Before Elia Kazan became the firebrand of American cinema, before Brando, before Dean, before storms of controversy, there was a quiet little film about a girl, a family, and a dream growing out of poverty. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn wasn't just Kazan's debut. It was the moment the industry first saw what he was capable of. The moment Hollywood realized this newcomer wasn't interested in big spectacles. He was interested in people, tender people, flawed people, real people, families struggling with bills, a father chasing hope faster than he could hold on to it. A girl reading under the shade of a tree because imagination was the only escape she had.
I read all the authors beginning with A and all the B's down to Burton. It's next.
All Kazan needed was a simple Brooklyn street, a few battered tenement walls, and actors willing to let their hearts show in small, vulnerable gestures. But the magic wasn't in the setting. It was in the way Kazan looked at human beings. He noticed the tiny details other directors ignored. A shaky hand, a forced smile, a child hesitating before speaking, a father hiding disappointment behind a joke. He believed those micro moments were where the soul lived. And he was right. Film critics would later call A Tree Grows in Brooklyn a deeply touching tearjerker. But the emotion didn't come from manipulation. It came from honesty. Kazan's honesty. At the time, Hollywood liked polished heroes and fairy tale endings. Kazan delivered something else. A world where heartbreak sat beside hope, where poverty didn't define a family, but it shaped them, and where dreams weren't guaranteed. They were fought for, one painful day at a time. And here's the surprising part. Even though it was his first film, Kazan already showed the instincts that would define his entire career. He guided actors the way a careful hand guides a fragile lantern, not imposing, not forcing, just nudging them toward emotional truth. Look at the father's big monologue, the moment where he confesses his failures and his love for his family. It doesn't play like scripted drama. It plays like a man trying not to fall apart in front of the people who depend on him. That's Kazan's gift. Characters don't act. They reveal themselves. And maybe that's why the film still feels modern today. The world changes. Technology changes. But the feeling of trying to hold a family together with nothing but love and hope, that never changes. So let me ask you something. When you look back on your own childhood, do you remember the big dramatic moments? Or the small ones? The quiet nights? The struggles you didn't understand yet? The dreams you held on to even when the world felt heavy? That's what Kazan captured here. Not Hollywood, not glamour, just life. Messy, fragile, beautiful life. And in a way, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn planted the seed for everything Kazan would create afterward. The empathy, the attention to detail, the belief that every character has a beating heart worth exploring. It was only his first film. But even then, Kazan already knew how to make an audience feel seen. Number 4. East of Eden, 1955. Some films are masterpieces, others are confessions. For Elia Kazan, East of Eden was both. This wasn't just a Steinbeck adaptation or a chance to introduce a new young actor named James Dean. This was Kazan's shadow on film, his wounds, his memories, his guilt, his rebellion, all stitched into a story about fathers, sons, and the battle for love. He once said, "It is more personal to me. It is more my own story." And if you watch closely, you can feel that truth in every frame. Dean's character, Cal, isn't just a troubled son. He is Kazan. Angry, misunderstood, desperate for approval, always standing in the emotional corner while someone else gets the sunlight.
Remember the money Dad lost in the lettuce business?
Kazan admitted it openly. I saw the Dean character as similar to myself. I was always the bad boy, but I thought I was the good boy. It's rare for a director to confess something so raw, but East of Eden brought it out of him. The tension between father and son, the longing for recognition, the ache of being the family's black sheep, Kazan wasn't directing those emotions. He was reliving them. And then there was James Dean, whose performance burned with the same unfiltered intensity that defined Kazan's own youth. Dean didn't simply act Cal's pain, he inhabited it. He carried it like a secret he'd been waiting his whole life to release. Take the famous bean farm money scene. Cal triumphantly brings his father a gift meant to win the approval he's chased his entire life, only to be rejected with quiet, devastating disappointment. Dean's reaction wasn't planned. It was instinct. It was heartbreak exploding in slow motion. And Kazan let the camera stay on him. No cuts, no polish, letting the wound bleed for the audience to see. Because that was Kazan's philosophy. Don't hide the pain. Use it. Face it. Set it free. And maybe that's why this film meant more to him than almost any other. It wasn't about plot. It wasn't about style. It wasn't even about Steinbeck. It was about forgiveness. Not the easy kind. The kind that takes years, maybe decades. The kind you give to a parent who never understood you. Or to a sibling who always seemed to win without trying. Or to the child you used to be, the one still shouting, "Why doesn't anyone see me?" So, let me ask you, do you relate more to Cal, fighting for approval you never got? Or to Aaron, blessed, favored, unaware of the storm sitting in his brother's chest? Or maybe you relate to the father, trying your best, never realizing how deep your silence cuts. East of Eden forces us to confront the parts of ourselves we often keep buried. And that's why Kazan considered it his most personal film. Not because it tells his story, but because it exposed his heart. He didn't just direct it, he lived it. Number 3, America, America, 1963. If East of Eden was Kazan's emotional autobiography, then America, America was his soul on film. This wasn't just a movie for him. It was a memory, a promise, a tribute to the family story that shaped everything he believed about struggle, identity, and the dream of a better life. Kazan didn't talk about this film casually. His son Nicholas said his father screened it every week in his later years. Every week. Think about that. What kind of film does a man return to when he's old, fragile, and searching for meaning? Not the most successful one. Not the most loved one. The most personal one. He once said the movie was full of the promise of America. But that promise wasn't shiny or romantic. It was brutal. Sweaty, hungry. Full of fear, betrayal, sacrifice, and hope. The kind of hope that keeps a person alive when they have nothing else left to hold on to. The story follows his uncle's desperate journey from the harsh realities of Turkey to the gates of Ellis Island. And Kazan filmed it with the urgency of someone protecting a sacred truth. Wide-angle shots captured landscapes too large for the human heart to understand. Close-ups caught eyes filled with exhaustion and determination. The black and white images weren't nostalgic. They were a confession of how dangerous the world truly was for people with nothing. And here's what makes the film so powerful.
I was your orderly, so naturally you've forgotten me. Remember? I stole chickens for you.
It doesn't pretend the journey was noble. It shows the lies, the crimes, the moral compromises, the messy truth of survival. Kazan didn't want a heroic immigrant story. He wanted an honest one. Because behind his uncle's journey was something larger every immigrant who ever chased a dream, but paid for it with pieces of themselves. Kazan knew that feeling intimately. He grew up between cultures, Greek, Turkish, American, never fully belonging anywhere. So when he made America, America, he wasn't just honoring his uncle. He was trying to understand himself. The film asks a question that echoes across generations. What does a person become when they're fighting to escape the life they were born into? And maybe that's why Kazan cherished this film more than any other. Because it didn't just tell his family's story. It explained his own fire, his ambition, his guilt, his relentless push to prove that his family's sacrifices meant something. So let me ask you, if you had to leave everything behind, culture, family, language, identity, would you have the courage to start over in a place that might not want you? Would any of us? America, America forces that question into the open. It reminds us that the American dream isn't a dream at all. It's a price, a cost, a journey filled with scars. And for Kazan, it was the story that defined him more than any award ever could. Number 2, A Face in the Crowd, 1957. Before the world understood the power of television. Before influencers, viral fame, and weaponized charisma. Elia Kazan saw the future, and he captured it in a single film that grows more terrifyingly accurate every decade. A Face in the Crowd wasn't just a movie, it was a prophecy. A warning wrapped inside a performance so explosive it practically shook the walls of 1950s Hollywood. Kazan adored this film. His son Nicholas said he watched it constantly, studying its rise and fall rhythm like a scientist examining a dangerous chemical reaction. Because Kazan knew exactly what he was exposing, what happens when the wrong man is given a microphone. And a country starts treating entertainment like truth. The story begins with an ordinary drifter, Lonesome Rhodes, played by Andy Griffith, an unknown actor at the time.
53.7. Just picked up another million.
And that casting choice was one of Kazan's boldest decisions. He believed that truth lived in unfamiliar faces, not polished stars. Anybody could act if inspired, he once said, and Griffith proved him right. But here's where Kazan's genius really shows. He didn't want Griffith to act volatile. He wanted him to be volatile. Behind the scenes, Kazan and writer Bud Schulberg infiltrated real Madison Avenue meetings, the birthplace of advertising manipulation. They listened as executives debated slogans, branding, and psychological hooks with intense neurotic pressure. Kazan described the experience as both ludicrous and deeply disturbing. He realized charisma could be weaponized, and he wanted the world to see that danger long before it arrived. A Face in the Crowd wasn't satire. It was truth disguised as entertainment. A story about a man who becomes powerful not because he's wise, but because he's loud, charming, and entertaining. Sound familiar? Patricia Neal, who delivered one of the greatest performances of her career, recalled that Kazan had a searching eye that could dissect an actor's soul. During a critical broadcast scene, he told men to drag her from the microphone, hard. She clung to the switchboard so fiercely that her hands bled. Kazan didn't stage emotion, he captured it. And yet, beneath the chaos and media satire, the film reveals something deeper, the fragility of the audience. We love the rise, we feed the ego, we turn charisma into power. And then we watch, stunned, as the monster we created destroys everything around him and himself. So here's a question that Kazan wanted his viewers to ask, even decades later. Do we create our own idols or our own disasters? And in an age of influencers, political entertainers, and viral personalities who command millions with a single post, are we any different from the people who worship Lonesome Rhodes? That's why Kazan kept revisiting this film. Not because it was his biggest triumph, but because it had something the others didn't. A warning that never stopped being true. And maybe never will. Number 1. On the Waterfront, 1954. If there is one film that Elia Kazan held closest, one he watched week after week even in his later years, it was On the Waterfront. To understand Kazan, you must understand this film. Because this wasn't just a story about corruption or labor unions, it was a mirror held up to the hardest choices a person can make. Nicholas Kazan said his father adored this movie. He kept returning to it, studying it, almost reliving it. Why? Because On the Waterfront wasn't just cinema. It was a confession about moral courage. And the price of telling the truth. Kazan once admitted that the film is about difficult choices, penalties you have to pay no matter what you decide. Those words weren't theoretical. They came from experience, real experience, choices he made, consequences he carried. But instead of hiding from that inner conflict, he turned it into art. And then there was Marlon Brando, a performance so vulnerable, so human, that even today it feels like the screen might crack under the weight of it.
I thought they was going to beat an education out of me, but I foxed them.
Kazan originally considered Frank Sinatra for the role, but he chose Brando for one simple reason: vulnerability. Brando didn't act like a movie star. He acted like a wounded man trying to stand up straight. Look at the way he hunches his shoulders, the way he hesitates before speaking, the way his eyes search for approval he knows he'll never get. That's not a performance. That's electricity burning through the frame, and Kazan knew exactly how to harness it. He didn't want Brando polished. He wanted him exposed. He wanted audiences to see the trembling of a man wrestling with loyalty, fear, and betrayal. A man who discovers far too late that silence comes with a price. That's why the famous taxicab scene hits with such force. Two brothers sitting inches apart, separated by years of unspoken truth. I could have been a contender.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
You've heard the line 1,000 times, but every time you watch it, it feels new. Because Kazan wasn't directing dialogue. He was directing heartbreak. He let the camera sit quietly, almost respectfully, as Brando unraveled. No dramatic score, no flashy angles. Just honesty. The docks, the fog, the cold wind biting at the characters' faces, it all mirrors the emotional storm beneath the surface. Every frame whispers the same question. If standing up for the truth costs you everything, would you still do it? And that's the question I want to ask you. Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing meant risking something important? Friendships, safety, your job, your reputation? Did you take the risk? Or did you walk away and spend years wondering what might have happened if you hadn't? Kazan understood that dilemma better than anyone. And in On the Waterfront, he didn't offer easy answers. He offered honesty. This wasn't just one of his favorite films, it was the film that defined him. The film where art collided with truth, and truth refused to look away. And that's why he never stopped returning to it. Because it never stopped returning to him. In the end, the myth was simple. At 86, Elia Kazan revealed his 6 favorite films. But the truth, the real truth, is far more revealing. Which of these films speaks to you the loudest? If one of his films still echoes in your mind after this video, Kazan did his job. Thanks for watching, and keep going deeper into cinema.